You can take this and you could use this, and how you use it is not necessarily just by doing this and saying, oh, there's, you know, oh yeah, I see a picture. But you have to think of this in the context of what your lens is. You know, and if you're working in 35 millimeter, let's say, here's a 35 millimeter slide. Well, everybody knows that a normal lens on a 35 millimeter camera is 50 millimeters. Okay? Well, 50 millimeters in you know, in inches is about that far from your eye. If it were, let's say, an 85 millimeter lens, it's about that far from your eye. If it's a 135, it's about that far from your eye. And so it works, you know, and so it works this way. And I happen to work in squares. So, you know, I can do this to, let's say, an 80 millimeter lens, which is about there, or a 50 millimeter lens, which is, you know, about there. So I would encourage you to put something like this in your pocket, put something like this in your car, and the other thing is, how do you know when to go back? I keep a compass in my camera bag, which I know it sounds crazy, but at least I know which is definitely east. I can't tell you east from west, south from north. So at least I can look at the compass and I'll know, is this a morning photograph or is this an evening photograph? And that really helps. I find that I'm taking photographs without a camera all the time. We both see, I mean, you know, you photograph a lot of people, and people scare me, no kidding. Jim photographs a lot of people, and we always say to each other, when we see people that come into our studios and that, you know, that walk around the torpedo factory, wow, what a face.
Yeah.
And I know that you're taking pictures of that person.
Yeah, you are.
And you don't have a camera in your hand.
No, I can. You see interesting faces, you see interesting people. And, you know, you do want to photograph. You just want to grab by the ear and drag them in the studio and say, sit there and shut up and do what I tell you.
So while we like to take our cameras with us all the time, and now today with digital cameras and the point-and-shoot cameras, you can really do that. I mean, you know, you've got some pretty powerful tools out there that allow you to do that. But for the most part, most of us don't walk around with cameras in our pockets. That's why it's a great idea to be more cognizant of the fact of taking pictures without a camera and having maybe a little tool with you that you can actually do this and maybe go back. I've taken notes. I have it at home, a folder. My wife is here. She probably doesn't even know it, but I have a folder of of ideas. In school years ago, we used to call it an idea book. You used to write down ideas of things that you'd like to photograph or like to do, and you write them down. You know, you write them down half the time. You never really.
At our age, we have to write down everything.
But you actually do. You really and truly do. But you never really get to do all of them. But if you write them down when you see something, the chances are you might go back to it. You really, really might go back to it. The other thing I think that you and I spoke of that we wanted to talk about was the whole idea of today of conceptual photography. Can you explain?
I thought it was you that do it.
Huh?
I thought you knew about it.
I didn't know anything about it. It's your concept.
No, that was you. I was going to ask that. Do you all have questions as we're going through here? I mean, because maybe we've raised questions or things about the show. There were a couple of comments that I kind of wanted to make about some of the work that was here in the show that I thought, you know, there was a lot of good work here. But I think there were several things that struck us. We were talking about contemporary photography and what it is today and how it's different from you know, what it was when Craig and I were maybe in our formative years. Whatever, one of the
when I had dark hair.
Yeah, I never had dark hair, and so it was. But the one over here, the color photograph of the two Adirondack chairs, I believe it is in many respects. You know, look at this thing a little carefully and closely because it's a very contemporary color photograph, and that there's a lot of things that are going on there that are beyond just necessarily the obvious. One of the advantages that we had in jurying this thing is that we could go back through the images over and over and over again, you know, and you start looking at the color and, you know, and why this image works and what doesn't, and, you know, or what have you. I could say probably the same thing about Pete's night picture of the what is it, Junction Mora, over there, because all of one of the interesting things to me about that is all of the different color sources of light. I mean, you've got, you know, this warm, almost magenta in the foreground with the cool, with the, you know, the tungsten light sources inside, and so you've got all of these things. Plus, it's a time exposure. You've got a little bit of people who are blurry, kind of thing. As I'm going through, you know, this is an amazing image. I mean, it's just on a lot of different levels, and I think it's made so much better by, you might say, the raggedy edges, that it becomes very otherworldly kind of thing. You keep getting drawn into this, and it's one of these things that, you know, when you start to dissect just portions of it, in some respects are very, very easy, but because of the mysterious nature of this way, the way it's presented, you know, you keep getting drawn back into it. This is an amazing photograph. The hair, I mean, just being blown. I mean, there's sort of this instant thing, the way her hands are done. There's a beautiful luminosity to this print that just makes it alive. And I can say the same thing probably about the companion piece that's over there where her hands are over her head. You know, the beautiful luminosity of the print and the you know, the hair really makes it.
You know what's really nice about them that I found, and I was pleased to see this when the photographs came in, is that, you know, it doesn't have to be big to be good. Big is good. You know, big works. That photograph right there is really excellent. It's a beautiful, beautiful photograph, and it's executed extremely well. But a small photograph like this, or a small photograph like this, or like this little Polaroid photograph, I happen to have a preference for liking a small thing that I can walk up to and have an intimate relationship with, as opposed to something today that is so large. The digital process has really driven size today. And the reason is because you can. You know, you can take a photograph today and you can make it any size you want almost. And that doesn't necessarily make it good. I had a teacher one time in school that said, you know, if it's,
you can't make it good, make it big.
If you can't make it good, make it big. You know, and I think that there was some relevancy to that. But the photographs that we got that were small, like this, you know, this is not a large photograph. Yet, when if you look at it from a distance, you really want to walk up to the photograph and you really want to look at the layers of things that are going on in the photo itself. There's more there than just the house and the color. There's a lot of different layers of textures and things like that that are going on, and it gives you an opportunity to have a little bit of a relationship, you know, with the photograph itself. And I think that's what makes stuff interesting today. Some of the photographers that I happen to admire are somebody like Michael Kennett. Is anybody familiar with who Michael Kennett is? Michael Kennett does not make a print that's over 8 inches square. Yet these photographs are absolutely gorgeous. And if you've ever seen one in person, you'll walk up to this thing and you literally could put your nose on it, as opposed to, you know, some of the larger pieces that we see today, you know, that are made digitally, and you can't put your nose on it. You can't look at the detail or have the intimate relationship as you would in a smaller piece. So it was interesting that these pieces were actually smaller in size. One of the pieces that I really liked a lot was this piece that looks like it was either solarized or something was going on with it. It reminded me of Man Ray.
Yeah.
And you know, in looking at photographs today,